Ahoy mateys! Now I know that these sets have already been done, but I always make these videos. It's just Wizards decide to push stuff out really fast that I can barely keep up. But I am going to be going over the first, and I will be making all 4, commander decks from Ixalan, this one called Ahoy Matey. When it comes to these videos, I talk about the commander, the sub-commander, and then I go through each card type, talking about the good cards you can get in the deck, and then an overall, is this like commander deck worth it, or is this set worth it, is what I usually do. So in this video, we'll be going over the Ahoy Matey deck and seeing if it's worth buying. So let's start off with the commander of this deck. The commander of the deck being Admiral Brass Unsinkable. A 5-cost commander for a 3/3 does not really seem worth it in my eyes. Usually when it comes to commanders, I usually try and go 5 if they're powerful or under mana wise, and then the rest depends on this ability. Now don't get me wrong, there is some decks where I go over, but they have to be quite powerful commanders. So when it comes to this, having a 3/3 with no keywords does not seem worth it. However, I haven't gone through her abilities. So she has 2 abilities. So the first one, if you look at it solo, does not seem that good. Why would you want to mill 4 cards? Especially your own cards. Why would you pay 5 mana for a 3/3 and then mill some of your cards for pretty much an additional cost? But just you wait, there is more. And this is where the card actually gets good in my opinion. The reason the cost is that is you might actually mill a good pirate card. And you're like, oh no, it's in my graveyard. But then her second ability goes, return a pirate. Every turn. So you can pretty much go, cool, I'm gonna play this, have a really cool ETB, kill it, next turn play it, really cool ETB, and it goes and goes and goes. Plus, I've never really been big into pirates. A pirate subtitle's always just been like, oh yeah, it's a thing, whatever for me. But with this commander and actually doing research on the cards you get in this, I'm kind of liking pirates. There is a handful of pirates I've used before, and a handful of pirates I have seen, but there's also been a handful of pirates I had no clue even existed, or I forgot about them, and I'm going, I want you. So with this commander, I actually think it's good. I think she's a bit pricey, but worth it if it goes. Being a 3/3, she's more of an enchantment commander in my opinion. You're only really using her for abilities. But with this deck built right, this deck can be really powerful. And it has a kind of unique way to play, which is one thing I do like when it comes to commanders. So now let's go on to the sub-commander. So the sub-commander is Don Andres the Renegade. A 4-cost for a 4/3 is just slightly a bit like, it's good, but just underneath what I would consider good. I usually try and go for the mana cost being like, if you pay 3 mana, you get a 3/3, pay 4 mana, you get a 4/4, and then it depends what happens in between there. So I do think this is slightly okay. And again, with no keywords. I think it's just me, I love my commanders having a keyword. But this sub-commander is really strange, but in a good way. I really like this sub-commander. To be honest, personally in my opinion, I actually see more people playing the sub-commander than the actual commander. The whole thing of giving your opponent's creatures +2/+2 and 2 keywords, Menace and Death Touch, does not seem really good. However, it's only if you get them. Also, blue cards that steal or black cards that return creatures from a graveyard really go well in this deck, because you literally just go, that big dinosaur you killed, or that big Eldrazi, I want that now, rather with Borrow or one of the Lily cards that let you return things to graveyard, and then you go, cool, so this is your powerful card, but now it has +2/+2, Death Touch and Menace. Now I'm about to have some fun. I'm not a big fan of stealing other people's cards. I don't really play that many games, but when I do, it's kind of now been mainly online. So decks that steal stuff online, or cards that steal people's cards, do not seem fun, and I've never been a big fan of it. But that's just the way I play. I don't care if other people do it, but this card seems perfect for those people that want to steal other people's cards, especially since it gives them a buff. And then there's even more. Pretty much playing exile cards, there's a lot of red that makes you exile stuff and play that turn. This sub-commander is really, really powerful, and really unique, and that's one of my favorite things when it comes to commanders, the unique playability of them. So let's start off with the crew, or the creatures in the deck. In this deck there is a total of 35 creatures, which with both of the commanders and sub-commanders, you can kind of see why this is going to be a very creature heavy deck. So that means something's going to have to drop off, which with how they usually build these decks, in my opinion, is rather going to be sorceries or enchantments. So we'll just have to wait and see. When it comes to these creatures, I say a lot of them are going to be pirates, and a lot of these cards are actually better than I thought they were going to be. I thought they might have not put in one or two of them because of kind of how powerful they are or how pricey they are, but I'm basing this off the old prices of the commander decks. I'm pretty sure the commander deck prices have gone up, but they've also upped the cards, which again I understand but not a big fan of, because I always thought you're paying more usually than what you get, unless you have a reason to buy it. So for example, if you want to buy a pirate deck or start a pirate deck, these are good for like a skeleton for it. Or if there's a handful of cards you want, that maybe one or two are worth more, because I know there was a deck where you got the pirate monkey that gives you a treasure for every artifact on the field. People bought that just for solely that card because it was cheaper to buy the deck than that card on its own. That is the type of cool things I like. But when it comes to the creatures in the deck, you get creatures like Francisco Foul Murderer, Skeleton Crew, Broadside Bombarders, Gem Cutter Butakirs, Conceer Captain, Time Steve Navigator, Dire Fleet Revengers, Fathom Fleet Captain, Angath's Murderers, Captain Lorraine Storm, Captivating Crew, Karakiv Recruiter, Carry Zev Shipwright Raider, Port Razor, Admiral Bucket Brass, and Plitless Plunderer. Going through the creatures made me actually really appreciate pirates. I do have a friend that has a pirate deck, but I never really get to play much with them, and I've always wanted to see it pop off and go. It has done once or twice, but it's kind of one of those things where I keep forgetting because it's rarely played. But I do really appreciate the pirate love, and I do think pirates are actually kind of underrated after looking at least the creatures in this deck. But now we are going on to the artifacts of the deck. In this deck there is 14 artifacts, 8 of them being your Soul Ring and Mana Rocks and stuff like that, so I'm not going to be going over them, but they did add a fair few artifacts that are not Mana Rocks, so let's go through them right now. The Adomnus, Armed Mounted Anchor, Biden of Thassa, Ichor of Ancestry, Vanquisher's Banner, Herald's Horn, the Grimm's Captain's Locker. So actually these are the type of cards that if you're making a tribal deck and someone goes, I put them in, I'm like, oh yeah, they're kind of the obvious choice, especially the Horn and the Banner. These are pretty much your kind of, not even unique. These are the cards you constantly see if someone's going, I'm going to make a deck that makes a load of creatures that then make tokens or have variations or graveyard recursion and then attack with a larger army. These are the kind of like, you see these a lot when people say, oh, if you don't have enough for the big massive frog boy, use these instead. They're cheaper, harder to get off though, but still really good. But now let's go through my personal favorite permanent type, enchantments. In this deck you get a total of 3 enchantments, technically 4 because Biden of Thassa is an artifact enchantment, but I put that in the artifact section. So when it comes to the enchantments, I'll only be going through the other 3, and they are Black Market Connections, Shared Animosity, King Nefirs. So again, to be honest, Black Market Connections in this deck, that's a pricey card last time I checked, and a lot of people want it. This is a really good card mainly because you get a Changeling, and I think it's probably one of the best cards they have printed. I think it was this year, it might have been last year. Time flies. But this is a really good selection of enchantments overall. Again, not many of them, however they picked a good selection. So now we are going into the spells of the deck, or the instances we'll be going off. In this deck there is 5 in total, and those are Evocation, Lethal Scheme, Chaos Warp, Prismari Command, and Rakdos' Charm. To be honest, again, I was shocked when it comes to these instances. Seeing Rakdos' Charm, it's a really good card. It is super cheap and highly reprinted. But again, seeing one of the commands from the school kind of didn't make sense, but I think that's mainly on me. Picturing the spell Harry Potter school pretty much, now becoming pirates. But there are really good cards or really good instances in this deck, and I will always go crazy for a Chaos Warp. I've still been trying to get my hands on the Chaos Warp from Strixhaven just because we're on the topic. So now we are going to be going on to the sorceries of the deck. When it comes to the sorceries of the deck, there is a total of 6, which again, as I thought, this is where it goes down. However, gonna put a full stop there, they're actually better than I originally thought, not by much. But the 6 cards are Blood Money, Blasphemous Act, Distant Melody, Windfall, Feed the Swarm, and Faithless Looting. To be honest, Blood Money, Blasphemous Act, and Distant Melody are not cards I thought would be in here. I thought this would have been a little bit lower. Now, they're not the best or most amazing of cards. To us, I think I'm the only one in my play group that actually thinks Blood Money's worth it. I do think it's an awesome card, but I did not think they would be putting these sorceries in. I thought they'll be a little bit kind of worse, but overall, still better than I thought, so they did a good job. Then finally, the lands. In this deck, there's 37 lands, which I think they usually do 32, so I could be wrong in that, but this is the most lands I've seen in the Commander deck in a while, and here are some that I thought are actually worth mentioning. When it comes to these lands, I actually do think these are worse than I originally thought. Again, the hardest part or the worst part of when it comes to these decks is the lands. I know they're the most pricey and it's very hard to put in, but to be honest, it's one of those things where if I ever buy one of these decks, the first thing I want to do is get rid of some of the lands and put in rather more basics, because there's some lands in here I hate more than basics, or buy, like, spend an extra like 20 to 50 quid on lands and put them in this deck solely. But overall, we're going to ask the big question of, is this worth it? To be honest, yes. This is the first time in a while that I'm solely saying yes. Pretty much, personally, if I had the spare income to just throw at Magic, I'd probably buy this to try it out. This deck has got me interested in pirates. I do think they are powerful, and I do think straight off the bat, this deck is playable but not amazing. I do think it automatically has to have some changes in it. Pretty much take out the obvious cards that are pretty much in all these decks and take out a bunch of the lands and then put in some of your own to give it kind of your own taste or variation. To be honest, if I was playing this, I would be playing it with the sub-commander more than the commander itself, but that's just me. I do think it's worth it overall, but I do think it depends on solely if you have the spare income or if you want to vary out and try something new. But that is solely it. But if you think I'm right, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know if you bought this and have played it, or if you have pirate decks of your own. Link me down in the box fields. I love seeing other people's decks and how they build them, and I love seeing when it comes to these cards. While you're down there, also remember to like, subscribe, and follow. We're getting closer and closer. To be honest, I got a little jump of like 6 people, which is the most I've ever got in one day, so thank you for that, and I would like this channel to keep growing. But again, as always, if you like This Is Worth It, I have the previous Is It Worth It here, a playlist of all Is It Worth It here, and a subscribe button here. And I appreciate all the love and help I've gotten so far, and I will see you all in the next video.